Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chocolate Travels. I'm here with Aurelien of Nelson's Chocofellar. So tell us a bit about your life before chocolate, what brought you into what I know now as the family tradition of chocolate making, as you see on your website.
I'm a chocolatier. My name is Aurelien. I have been working with chocolate since 2018 unofficially, when it became initially a passion project on the side,
Mm.
and progressively turned into a career in 2021. Um, Prior to that, I've done many things. I've been a jack of all trade since getting my first job at the age of 16. I went through university, but it's the outdoors industry that caught my
Mm.
interest initially. I worked in helicopter skiing and cat skiing. I worked in mountain equipment co-op as an outdoors retailer as well. Like I kind of dabbled in a lot of the outdoors industry out of
Right.
passion for exploring. And then marketing, my marketing career took off a little bit. Became a marketing consultant and a website builder for small businesses. And it's through this path that I met my first chocolate mentor. And while helping him with marketing, I kind of opened my eyes to another passion that I wanted to birth.
Okay. And you're originally from Switzerland, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I grew
Ah,
up in Switzerland. Always had endless amount of chocolates in my household, so that probably shaped my palate.
right.
My dad, I remember my dad making whiskey truffles when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
nice.
he wasn't knowing how to temper properly, but he had the taste bud for how it should taste finally.
Right, right.
So yeah, always had chocolate around for any time of the day or night.
And I guess Switzerland is known too, obviously, for a lot of outdoorsy sports. And then you came to the west coast of Canada, which is also known for their outdoorsy sports. So what brought you to Canada?
Well, I actually was quite dissatisfied with the university program in Switzerland, the way it was organized, because it was just kind of a flat semester followed by peak learnings, and then pass your
Mm,
exam and forget everything about it.
mm,
And I need to be more engaged in that to follow through. So I dropped my degree in Switzerland and transferred to SFU in Vancouver,
mm.
where I ended up completing my bachelor in communication and multimedia. And because it's way more small project based and multiple projects per semester, it kept me way more engaged through my degree.
Right. Not just theory and lectures and
Totally.
such. Okay. So tell us now then about Nelson's Chocofellar. As far as I know, on their website, it mentions that it's been around for a while, and then you got into it much later on. So tell us a little bit about the history of Chocofellar and then sort of where you entered in.
Sure. So Chocofellar was founded by Sam Lazenby and Holly Wheeler, Nelson residents that moved
I'm
here in
sorry,
1990.
for those who don't know, where is Nelson?
So Nelson is in British Columbia, close to the U.S. border, about halfway between Vancouver and Calgary, 8 hours each way, more or less.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a small mountain town, has great skiing and great outdoors recreational year round.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was founded in 1990. Sam was trained by Bernard Callebaut in Calgary in confectionery and just the art of basically confections and truffles
Mm,
and bars. So he naturally gravitated towards using Belgium chocolate for his career over here,
mhm.
and was kind of the first chocolate shop in the West Kootenays that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So he kind of brought with him the passion for fine chocolates in the West Kootenays, and yeah, they operated with Belgium chocolate and a little bit of French chocolate from Cocoa Berry as well for 31 years
Hmm.
prior to me taking the torch as they retired in 2021.
Ah, okay, okay.
Um,
So were you
yeah,
working with them at the time when they passed the
no,
torch?
I was volunteering for them out of interest to get my foot in the door,
Okay.
but that was after myself. My first mentor is John Down from Christopher Norman Chocolates in Half Moon Bay, so near
Okay.
Vancouver on the Sunshine Coast,
Mm,
and he passed me on his passion for artisanal chocolates. I then started to do a lot of home experiments, everything from making my own caramels, my own bars out of confectionery chocolate, to also doing a little bit of bean to bar with just small experiments with a tiny melanger that I had acquired. And
But why did
when
that
I
attract you so much? Because you had a background in marketing and you're really outdoorsy. So why did you want to make chocolate so much?
honestly, I think that what clicked when I tried John's chocolate on the Sunshine Coast was that I thought I knew what high-end
Mm,
chocolate should taste like and
mm,
tasted like, and that
yeah.
my sensory experience was
Okay.
kind of satiated with there. And when I tried his chocolate, it was kind of like entering a new universe.
Mm,
And I mean, Switzerland has phenomenal chocolate, but his was a level above everything that I had tried so far.
hmm
And so it piqued my interest, as in like, okay, what's there that I didn't know, and new information to the brain, and
Okay.
also seeing like how he channeled his own hyperactivity through that medium piqued my interest, because I'm also
Mm.
a pretty hyperactive person. So it felt like
Chocolate
from
is
an
a really good place for people that need to multitask and do a million things because there's
totally
many things
exactly.
layered. Yeah,
So
yeah. So that makes
yeah, I
sense.
became fascinated. That's the only
Mm.
way I can put it. And
Okay.
he tried to explain to me that it would be endless hours, and that it was a lot more than met the eye in terms of the complexity and the finesse required
hmm
to
hmm
um, to cast properly, to do the fillings properly, and everything. But
Right.
I just felt like
Wonderful.
it would fulfill something in me. But it was kind of the blind leading the blind, if I may say.
And then you ended up in central BC, volunteering at Chocofellar. They were about to retire, and you thought, why don't I continue it?
Yeah, so like when I moved to Nelson, initially I had my small marketing consultancy business, and I was also working as a photographer quickly on for Big Red Cat Skiing, another local operation an hour away from here. I started working at a organic wholesale food distributor based
hmm
in Nelson as well, just to like make ends meet.
hmm
And so I had access to good ingredients, and that's kind of one of the ways I could score
mm
cheaper chocolate to experiment at home and do a lot of tempering attempts, etc. And from those experimentations and confectionery experiments, I then met Sam and Holly over here, and kind of like explained to them my interest in knowing more in just refining my own skills. And they told me they didn't want to hire, but they wanted to sell. So from then the conversation started, and it took
Wow.
about a year and a half of volunteering with them and negotiations
Mhm.
until we found an agreement that made sense to both of us.
Wow, that's amazing. Wonderful. And so you took it on and you continued with your chocolatier skills. And what year was that?
So in 2021, in the fall 2021 as well. So that was another thing, is like COVID happened in 2020, as
Mm,
everybody knows, and so I lost initially a lot of my clients and a lot of the work that I was doing in the outdoor sports industry, because the whole tourism sector shut down.
right.
And I just was kind of seeking for something more pandemic proof. And chocolate was something that during the pandemic spiked, because people needed something to entertain himself at home and to
Right.
stay happy too.
Yeah.
And as we know, chocolate can create a bit of a euphoria
Yes.
effect as well. So like it felt like a sturdy place to step a foot in as a long term career, despite possible outside uncertainty factors.
hmm
And yeah, so then I took it on in late 2021, and they kept mentoring me for the ongoing while, to make sure that whatever they had established would carry on at least at the same train.
hmm
So I'm feeling very grateful for that. And progressively, then I guess supply chain issues started multiplying,
hmm
and that was one of the reasons to move away from Belgium chocolates initially, on top of personal ethical reasons. Was just a difficulty to get the product when we needed it. And so we moved from Belgium chocolate to Colombian chocolate with Lucre, primarily as a distributor. We kept some of our milk chocolate rooted in cocoa berry because of the quality from it, but we
hmm
progressively transitioned to a full continental chocolate source, which was one of my goal was to reduce our carbon footprint as well as a small operator.
Mm-hmm.
And this year with the prices that skyrocketed due to the global shortage announced earlier this year, and with everything going up, I made the decision this spring to bulk up on all of our existing supply with all the budget that we had, and to buy ourselves time to figure out how to make our own chocolates.
Right, right.
And that
So
was
the
the beginning.
reason of shifting towards making your own chocolate from bean to bar was a little bit of more of the supply issues. You thought it would be maybe more sustainable.
It was multifaceted. Like I would say,
Mhm.
from the beginning of taking on Nelson's Chocofellar, I had the dream of it functioning with our very own chocolates.
Okay.
It could not quite happen right off the get go because there was so much to figure out,
Right, right,
and the art of confectionery is very much the knowing how to put the Midas touch on everything, and really mastering shelf lives, mastering ganaches,
right,
mastering texture and taste from a finished standpoint of the product.
right,
And I
right.
felt like that was a really worthy pursuit to begin with
Mhm.
before transitioning to making our very own chocolate to work with.
Right, because
Because
you started that 2024, but you already had in the back of your mind this idea of maybe making your own
totally.
chocolate from bean to bar. So tell me, where did that idea come from?
Well,
Uh,
prior to taking on Chocofellar, as I was saying briefly before, I made some bean to bar experiments at
oh, okay.
home when I worked at the organic wholesale distributor, because I could get some beans for cheap, and I just wanted to experiment with the different um, tastes that come from different regions, kind of like the same way that wine works in terms of cepages and
Right, right.
origins, and it has a clear identity that with a bit of a trained palate we can distinguish. And I became curious.
And so where
Uh,
did that idea come from? Did you come across some bean to bar brands in Canada or something, or you just had the beans and you knew you could
uh,
make similar?
I was living with a housemate that had a melanger that he was using
Oh,
to make
really?
hazelnut
Oh, okay.
butters.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, at
Oh,
that moment,
nice.
I just had gotten through a breakup and I needed a bit of a hobby. So it was kind of like how how can I keep my mind busy and create
Yeah.
something that is constructive for myself? And yeah, then the bug caught on.
It can be
So
addicting. Once you start that melanger and you start making chocolate, it's really exciting.
totally, yeah. And the perfume
Okay.
that came out in the house was like, oh wow, that this
That's
smells,
really cool.
like the when I lived in Freiburg in Switzerland, the local chocolate factory named Villar had one of those old red brick chimney for the
Oh,
roaster, and it would perfume the entire city.
wow.
Whenever they would roast, it would
That's
perfume
amazing.
kilometers around. And
Yeah.
yeah, when I started making my own, there was something of the
Well,
nostalgia. I was like,
you have
wow,
the red brick in the background, so maybe
we do totally.
you'll
So
be
yeah,
doing that there. Really cool. And how did your first batches come out when you were experimenting with your roommate's thing? Was
yeah,
it
I
good?
would
Were you
say
happy with it?
the taste was really good. I had more issues with tempering my very own bean to bar chocolates than with commercial chocolate. It did
It's
not
very
quite
different.
respond the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Same with moisture control as well. Despite
Mm,
roasting ourselves, like it would bloom faster, even if
mhm.
it was well tempered. So I had I had a few issues to begin with, but
But the flavor you were happy with?
yeah, the flavor I was quite easily happy on. Yeah,
Okay.
if you use really high quality ingredients and you use a bit of a tried and true formula, then you can't go fully wrong at the
Yeah.
very least.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
people are very
but
intimidated, but I feel like, if you start with a good bean, a good quality bean that you know other people use, and it's hard to mess it up too bad, I
yeah,
find. Yeah.
totally,
Unless you burn your beans, so that's a different story.
exactly. Unless you burn it, or unless you like break your melanger by overloading it, or
Yeah.
things like that.
Okay, another question I had then. So, on your website, you mentioned that you have family sort of very in the past, maybe great grandparents or whatnot, who
Yeah.
worked for a really popular brand in Switzerland, one of the oldest chocolate brands in Switzerland, which is now owned by Nestle. They bought it a long time ago.
Hmm.
So now that you're making bean to bar chocolate, a lot of people in the bean to bar world are very anti-industrial chocolate, right? They're not really into that Nestle and Couverture and Callebaut and all that, they have issue with that. So how do you view this type of industrial chocolate now that you're sort of in the bean to bar realm? Is it fair to have so much disdain towards industrial chocolate brands?
Well, I mean, disdain is a big word. I would say I'm personally I have not bought chocolate from a major corporation in a really long time.
Mm,
I would say that it would be hypocritical to only hate it because without it, I probably wouldn't even exist.
right, right.
So I have to have some degree of gratitude towards it. But yeah, do I believe that their ethics are and morals are all in the right place, or that they are just mainly driven by profit and will take some shortcuts here and there? You know, they're massive corporations and they have a massive purchasing power, and their impact is overall quite negative on the smaller players, but also at the same time they have established trends that a lot of the smaller players can, and signs that smaller players can copy and
Right.
emulate, or just follow and then take their own twist with it. So um, I don't want to hate only on it because I don't have any reason to fully hate other than like I do not want to follow their sets of morals and ethics for the way I run my own company.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you know, having my great grandfather having worked at Caille, like in the small village of Broc in Switzerland, like it's a village that was very depressed economically. Like people were traveling by bicycle to cities that were hours away to get work to so that they
Hmm.
could feed their families, and that was the
Hmm.
case for my family.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when the factory decided, well, when Kaya decided to build another factory, their second one, right by the lake, there, functioning on hydroelectric, which was revolutionary in 1898, um, it provided the whole village an employment opportunity,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
without that, I would not have had my ancestors.
Right. Right. And
So I
also, Kaye back then was very different than what the brand is today.
It is. I
Completely.
mean, it
Yeah.
started from the moment they built that factory. I think in the span of my great grandfather's career, he switched from being 100 employee at the beginning to build it up to something like 3,000 employees by the moment
Wow.
he retired. So
Yeah.
it created a massive boom locally.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes, Kaye was early on endorsed and supported financially by Henry Nestle himself.
Hmm.
um, and I believe that things were different at that time as well. Like it was a bit more
Yeah.
the Wild West in Europe, uh, and a different spirit. And Nestle was not like the massive corporation that tries to
Yeah.
fulfill the desires of its shareholders the way it is now.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it was a different time, different morals, and
Yeah.
they did the best that they did at that time. Yeah.
But I think you have, like me, my background is was a chocolatier for many, many years too. So I know I have an appreciation for that sector. I understand that sector, and you do as too, you do as well. But I think it's important because a lot of people in the bean to bar world don't come from chocolatier backgrounds. They come from very, very different backgrounds, and sometimes it's very easy to sort of badger sort of big chocolate and this and that. When at the end of the day, too, there's a lot of people in that industry who mean well and are doing well, and it's not so black and white, right? But I think the point here is that it had its time, I guess, and now we're sort of in a new age where we can do things a bit differently, probably do things much better, not just in quality, like you said, but in the way we treat everyone in the industry, right?
100%. And the earth is also more populated now. There's more demand, there's more pressure on the land
Yeah.
and on the resources. So, like, we have to be more mindful and conscious of our consumption choices than we had to be in the past. And to me, chocolate is one of those areas that is quite a sensitive topic, same as coffee, from both the way the farmers get to live and grow their crops, to the final product consumed, and everything in between.
Hmm.
um, there is a freedom and a responsibility that comes with especially a small business like ours at Tiny Dot in the ocean. Like it's not at a global scale that will have a ripple, but for the people that we touch, we can have
Of
a
course.
sense. We have a power of sensibilizing people to the reality of what it is, as well as to answer responsibly to those who are already sensitive to the issues related to our trade.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the question for some people is it possible to do better than what the industries? And I think a lot, like many bean to bar makers in Canada are proving it is possible, right? The chocolate's going to cost a bit more. It's a lot more work for a lot of people, but it is possible to go that route and to be
Mhm.
successful. So when you began in chocolate, it was mostly the chocolatier work that we said. What did you enjoy the most about making chocolate as a chocolatier? Why was it so thrilling for you?
Um, Very good question. I would say to like the transformation, the alchemy of like taking a good and turning it into a final product with my hands,
Mm,
and not much tooling, um, and very little food waste as well in this facility. Like
yeah,
there's something really thrilling about putting the Midas touch to something and be able to channel like a bit of an obsessive mind into something that is creative rather than destructive.
yeah.
I think that was really,
Mm.
yeah, that was a high that lasted for a really long time. Yeah, and still lives to this day in me. As in, like, if I have the energy to create something with it, it's a wonderful medium to play with.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I would say that like one of my greatest pleasures with chocolate is whether it's to make it bean to bar or whatever end results. My motto is the taste that one gets at the very beginning of biting in a chocolate should evolve in mouth
Mm,
and should
mm,
not remain the same. It's kind
right.
of like looking at a photo that's been too photoshopped. Everything is saturated, it's fixed, and it's rigid. It's not the mood I want to have with any chocolate I create. It needs to evolve. It needs
Mm.
to have different tones and different colors.
More
Like,
depth. Right, right.
yeah,
More dimension to it, definitely. And
and
that's a
and
lot of
and
what being the bar is.
being able to be intentional with that, or at least partially intentional with this,
Yeah.
and letting also the natural products shine their own aroma that way. That I think is the greatest game.
And
Is both
that's
letting the ingredients speak for themselves, but also just fine tuning them enough or playing with them so that they get to.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of also what the bean to bar realm is about more dimension. It's not this one typical cocoa flavor. You know, every bar has its unique flavors, and there's just so much more layering to it. That's a big part of what the difference is between industrial and fine
Totally.
chocolate. And how is making chocolate, bean to bar, working with your own bean to bar chocolate? How is that different than being a chocolatier? Did you feel you had to relearn chocolate in a way, or was it very easy transition for you?
I mean, we took a solid 6 months to be able to like have that be more than a rumor that we were changing, and be actually like open about it, because we had a lot of, I don't want to say trial and error, but a lot of fine tuning. Whether
Hmm.
it came to getting the perfect temper in our own chocolates, to getting the right fluidity to work with as well, because couverture chocolate is that is the wonderful thing about commercial couverture
So
chocolate is it's
fluid.
quite
Yeah.
easy
Yeah.
to work with, and to get very little air bubbles
Yeah.
in molds and casts, and to have that perfect thin shell and everything, and to be able to reproduce that with our own chocolate was definitely, yeah, it took some time up until we got there,
Right.
and I would say right now we're very happy with the way it works, from both the tempering, the lasting temper, as well as taste and texture. Very happy with all the progress that we've made on
Mm.
this front. Doesn't mean that we have hit the peak of what's possible, but I would say we've done a lot of progress.
Right. Right. Well, you sound a little bit obsessive, so you're probably never going to be completely happy. You're always going to be trying to improve it a little bit, which is good. But yeah, even in the chocolatier realm, if you're changing brands of chocolate, sometimes you kind of have to reassess how
Totally,
you temper, right? So
hundred
going
percent.
from that couverture with less of thin and lots of cocoa butter to bean to bar chocolate is another hurdle for a lot of people, which they don't expect. Yeah, that's a good point. And it states on your website that you use cacao from Colombia specifically, and you touched a little bit earlier on why that is. But why these beans in particular, and can you tell us more about them and where you source them specifically?
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons to for us to have opted for beans out of Colombia for our staple chocolate at this point. That doesn't mean doesn't mean we'll stay exclusively with this origin, but for
Okay.
now it works well. Comes from the region of Santander, northeast mountains of Colombia, more precisely San Vicente de Chucuri, a small village over there, having some of our farms supplying it, and We work with a direct trade importer that buys those beans from the local municipalities. So
Mm.
our understanding is that while it doesn't come with a stamp like big brands like to adopt, such as fair trade or things like that, it rewards the farmers directly
Mm.
by the municipalities paying themselves an adopted pricing. So it's not like our importer negotiates the price. The municipality dictates the price, and
Wow.
we get it from that price, which um, I
And
will go
that's a
myself
good
in
point because
February to
that's
visit those farmers myself and see what is their comfort of level of living, and
mhm.
same as the biodiversity of culture that they have, that promotes those ancient beings to keep growing. But yeah, it's that's part of my interest is like
It's a really
the a
good
lot
point
of
what you made earlier that it doesn't have the fair trade stamp, but it, like you said, it kind of goes beyond that because in the fair trade realm, a lot of people don't realize that the farmers at the other end, they've lost in many cases their negotiating power, which was kind of the point of fair trade anyway. And so what you're saying is that the municipality there, they're the ones that dictate what they're going to sell it for. And so, that's even more reassuring than that fair trade certification because you really don't know what's happening behind the scenes there.
Totally, and from my understanding prior to working with within the chocolate world, is that fair trade guarantees a fixed income as the very bare minimum, but that fixed income is not determined by the level of living of where people are earning. It's
Right,
basically the biggest players in the cacao world that have established what they consider as being fair
right,
for per farmer and per kilogram to be bought. And so it's, to me, it almost has the red flag of it being a marketing scheme,
right.
possibly. And so it's not a label that I've seeked getting for the reassurance of my customers. I'd rather build personal connections and be able to speak for things myself at this point, especially given how small scale we are,
Mhm.
um, rather than guarantee things beyond a label that ultimately I don't have any control over.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the best way. And that's what a lot of bean to bar chocolate makers are doing is, not going the certification route, but instead being very honest and open about everything, even, how much they're paying for cacao, where they're getting it. And I think that's ideal. That's much more ideal than going the certification route, in my opinion. Um, so you said that you do plan on perhaps maybe being open to maybe other origins in the future. Is that sort of something you're?
Yeah, in my own experimentation of the beans that I've loved the most to work with were from Venezuela. Its perfume and aroma is quite subtle and very rich at the same time. It's got the nickname for some of the regions of Venezuela to carry the name of porcelana chocolates, and is quite appraised and won many medals in the artisanal chocolate craft. So it would be amazing to get to work eventually with Venezuelan cacao as well. And there's so
Wonderful.
many amazing origins in South America. I would really like to keep our origins continental for carbon footprint and ethical
Mm,
reasons,
mm,
as well as like the permaculture and the biodiverse cultures in South America allow cacao to um, to be more of a sustainable product overall than what's been implemented by Europeans in Africa. So I would personally prefer to
hmm.
support continental cacao for simple
Right.
reasons.
And that's the original area of where cacao grew. It's endemic
Totally.
to South America. So that, it's a good point. Some might say that to transition from chocolatier to chocolate maker would not only be very costly, but that your customers, they might not really appreciate the transition. They might not appreciate the effort at the end of the day. So, maybe they're there for your ganaches and your fillings, and then you switch over to making the chocolate yourself. Do you find customers there in Nelson, are they excited that you're making the bean to bar, or is it challenging to get them to appreciate and sort of understand?
That's a good question. I would say it really ranges. There's a whole wide range of appreciation or level of care about it. There are the people that we meet at markets that we present this now as like, hey, we've transitioned, and their response is like, oh, cool. How different is it than before? And they taste it, and to them, it tastes like chocolate.
Right. It tastes good.
That's
That's good for them.
good
Yeah.
enough. It's like there's the dark and there's the milk, and that's it. So like, there's definitely room for further education of our customer base, as well as the retailers that we have to really educate them on the extra step that we take now versus what
Right.
was made before.
Yeah.
Um, those who get it really get it, and they're extremely appreciative. And we often hear that we make the best chocolate they've ever had, whether that's contextual or wherever their bias comes from, or
Right.
unbiased. That's up to them. But it's cool to see those who know the history and that have been long-time supporters to have their positive feedback and encouragement, as in like, yeah, keep going,
Yeah.
you're going in the right track. And then there's some degree of indifference or lack of education of people that some are concerned like, oh, does that mean it's going to get more expensive? Because they're
Mm.
very price centric. Their appreciation
Right.
of a product is dictated by their consuming power. Others is simply the taste and texture. And some also regret the old ways that the previous owners worked with. We have some elderly customers that still wish it was the old owners running the show over here versus
Right.
me,
Right.
because they just had a personal
Of
relationship with,
course.
with
Yeah.
them. And
Yeah.
what can we do about it other than nod and smile and do our very best to provide them with a great customer experience and make sure
Yeah.
that they're well tended to. That's all we can really do at the end of the day, is make sure that we go above and beyond for every customer, whether it's a prospective one, an existing one in front of us, somebody we just talked to. Speak with honesty and passion and integrity behind our product.
Yeah. And that's a risk for anyone who's taking over a new business. There's a coffee shop near where I live now, and to be honest, it's such a nice place and it has a great sort of community, but the coffee is the worst. And the only reason it's so popular is because people love the owner. That's why they're there. So, did you find any feedback of people who like they actually prefer the couverture? They're like, I just don't like all this interesting flavor. Did you?
No, so far I would say the feedback on our very own chocolate is very positive, and
Okay.
because our demographic is like we do have a fair bit of people in their 30s and 40s who are quite active, who come shop
Mm-hmm.
over here, but a lot of our regular clientele is more in their 50s and above.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they tend to prefer things that are not as sweet.
Okay.
And so we've raised the cocoa percentage of our staple dark chocolates and the one we use for confectionery, and same with milk chocolate. The couverture one we use had 41% cacao. Now the one we make has roughly 47, between 46 and 48%
Mm.
of cacao mass, and so it tastes more bitter. And I think that to some degree, especially in a town that is very health conscious, people are very appreciative of less processed sugar. We also only use organic cane sugar as a sweetener, so there's a true appreciation for things being
That's good.
health conscious
Right.
driven, as well as traceable origin, and just like an overall feeling that they're not gonna get a sugar high only out of eating our chocolate, but like that they're gonna really feel the chocolate being made out of cacao.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true, especially because I'm in Toronto now, but I was coming from the Salmon Arm, BC, which is sort of central, kind of Okanagan area. And I was very curious coming from Vancouver if you're going to get those same type of people. And yeah, there's a lot of, younger 20, 30, 40 people in that age group who are really conscious about ingredients and where it's coming from and quality and all that. So it's really nice to see. And it's good to hear that the same thing in Nelson. You get that appreciation there. Was there anything that surprised you when you began really getting into the chocolate making or working with this chocolate?
Um, well, one thing that surprised me is even how different the cacao tastes between 1 day of conching to 3 days of conching. And some could say it's bogus, but the temperature that is within the melanger itself, beyond just the roasting and time of temperature that happens prior to that, definitely has an effect in the overall final taste and texture of the product.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's been a lot of learning for me, and it's hard to pinpoint what changes, or other than the grittiness, and but through the temperature, and friction and all of that. Getting the right speed of rotation for the melangers to make sure that the temperature works well for the overall final product. Same as the fluidity of the final product is affected by how hot it runs inside the melanger while conching. So
Mm.
those were things I did not
Yeah.
um, anticipate running into. Had done my fair amount of research on like the perfect blends for milk powders to have the right amount of fat contained within it, and the best flavor profile for milk powders. So like that that incorporation went out pretty smoothly. But in terms of the overall handling of the bean and the even the amount of cocoa butter that needs to be added to the overall blend was surprisingly high, because I guess every bean from
Yeah.
different origins carries a certain different amount
Yeah.
of fat, even though the rough math or the rough rule of thumb is 50% of the bean is pure cocoa fat.
Yeah.
It,
It
every
can
bean
it can
needs its
range
own
from
hand.
20%. 20%, that's a huge amount, right? So
Totally,
that's a huge amount of fat. And like you said too, a lot of new makers, they underestimate melanging. They're always focused on the roasting, but the refining time has a huge impact on flavor. And you're right, what you said, we have research to support this idea that the heat almost creates new volatiles, almost like roasting. It creates new aroma profiles. And so a lot of chocolate makers don't realize that the process of grinding is not just smoothness, you're actually transforming the flavor, right? And so you as a chocolate maker, you have so many things you have to think about: fluidity, viscosity, flavor, particle size, all happening at once. You kind of have to juggle all that. So for people who don't understand, it's a lot of work. It's a lot to appreciate and to do it
totally.
properly. To do it properly.
The other thing as well that we have to be extremely mindful is Nelson being a mountainous town. The climate over here um, is great to live in. That being said, we do have the fair amount of weather episodes that bring with them temporary power outages,
Um,
and that when making bean to bar is definitely a safety concern.
yeah.
So to be able to adjust and have the right equipment, we work only with DCM melangers for their safety and built as well in there.
Mm,
And Yeah, that was definitely some heavy considerations went into that prior to launching the first batches, and we also monitor them quite closely when we know either a thunderstorm or a big windstorm
yeah.
is happening in
Has
town.
that happened to you? Did you encounter something like that
Oh
yet?
yeah,
Or
we've
okay.
already had a few power outages happening, and
Okay.
we've had to respond. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What skills does one require to be a chocolatier, to be a good, skillful chocolatier?
Um, I would say the number one thing is good taste buds. Like, because if you don't have sensitive taste buds, you're gonna either get bored of the trade pretty quickly
Mm,
if everything
mm,
tastes kind of like the same,
right.
or you might not even get fine enough an attunement with it that your highest demands or the most demanding customers you have might not be able to find satisfaction in your products.
Yeah, you have to be very
Um,
critical about
yeah,
flavor.
so you have to be quite self-critical, but hopefully not too much self-loathing as a response to that. But I would say, yeah, being motivated, having a lot of energy, because it's a business that demands a lot of time and energy. Um, Passion being the number one ingredient, I think, in any small business.
Especially in food.
And
Food is
Yeah,
very
totally.
risky business. You have to have the passion to get you going in the
Totally,
morning.
because we all need to eat. So, like, food is a safe domain in the sense that there is always going to be demand, but the demand can really be quite volatile from one product or a brand to another based
Yeah,
on evolution as well.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say it requires being able to wear a few hats as well and not just be
Mm,
rigid in one role,
mm.
because things evolve. Yeah.
Good point. And as a chocolate maker, do those same skills are required, or is there a different set of skills to become a really good chocolate maker?
No, I would say all that I mentioned applies as well,
Okay.
just to be a chocolate maker
Mm,
in
mm.
general. Uh, with that being said, chocolate maker requires an additional level of visual OCD,
Okay.
um, because whether one works with only natural ingredients like we do, or one works with also cocoa butter coloring, which is not our thing, but it's definitely something that a lot of chocolatiers work with. Being able to to remember that we all eat with our eyes first is important because chocolate marks itself very easily. It's quite unforgiving. You slightly overheat your mold, and you're gonna have a different result. So like being able to have sensitive hands and eyes and good coordination between the two of them is paramount
Yeah,
to be able to give that Midas touch.
very
If you have
meticulous.
background in pastry, awesome, but I would not say it's a prerequisite. I did not personally,
Hmm.
but the chef that I currently work with has, and I can definitely see that in terms of kitchen organization, in terms of consistent attention to detail, it's an amazing skill to have.
Yeah, yeah, definitely in the pastry realm. I think it's a bit harder going from culinary to chocolate as opposed to pastry to chocolate because they don't always have the same meticulous, you can play around with things while they're in the pot, whereas chocolate, you don't have that flexibility as
Yeah, yeah,
much. And you're true too. Like I was a chocolatier for many years using the cocoa butter colors, and I would say that it's easier to make a beautiful chocolate, spraying it, even just one color, than not going that route, not using the cocoa butter sprays. It's a lot harder to have something look beautiful and not get all scratched up and to be stunning to somebody. It takes more skill, I would say, to do that, definitely. Um, do your friends in the chocolatier world, do they get excited about your bean to bar aspect, or do they seem a bit unfazed? Like, no, like,
no, definitely. I have a lot of positive support that way,
okay.
and it's been amazing to have some good kudos from colleagues or
Mm,
competitors. I had the impression when I stepped into the chocolate world that there was a lot of ego and a lot of like fancy, successful chocolatiers that were very much look at me being successful and how great I am. And the more I progress into this line of work, the more I realize how supportive actually small operators are with one another.
hmm hmm
And it's not so much. Oh, let me keep my secrets to myself. It's like, oh, you need a hand figuring this out.
mm,
Let me have a look at it.
right.
And so Johan that we're speaking about from Shocky, for instance, has been really amazing support as we transition to Bean to Bar, to help
Wonderful.
us figure out the and fine tune even our cocoa butter percentage in some of our products, and just make sure that things were transitioning smoothly.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been quite cool to have the support, and same with like family in Switzerland that has tried the chocolate that we make over here over the last 3 years, and that from friends and family feedback, it's always a positive evolution year to year what we do.
Yeah, I remember I knew someone from Switzerland who always would think Swiss chocolate is the best, but once they started tasting bean to bar and all this, and they went back to Switzerland, there's like there's no comparison. It's not always the best in the world coming from Switzerland. And I think that's important for people to know, like it doesn't, especially being to bar, it doesn't matter if you are being living in Switzerland or in Canada. What matters is your skill set and the ingredients you're using, right? And that could be anywhere. So people really need to appreciate that too, that there's chocolate makers in Canada that are better than some of the chocolate makers in Switzerland, and to appreciate that hard work and support local makers as well. Okay, so tell us a little bit then about your current lineup of products. What do you create right now? What are you making?
Good question. So we are currently making 11 different kinds of bars, from plain milk and dark chocolate bars to confectionery bars where we make our own organic gluten-free cookie mix that we then blitz and pipe inside the bars. Um, we have about 27 different confections that we have on our gift box menus, ranging from 18 to 27 based on the time of the year and the seasonality. And we also do seasonal specials for Valentine's, Easter, or Christmas, obviously, with different shapes of molds that we use for the occasions. We are currently working on a new mint bar that we will release this winter. So that's an exciting one
Is
for
that
us
like a
to.
peppermint bar?
Yeah, it's going to be a peppermint bar, totally, but with a soft filling on the inside, so like
Oh,
a
okay.
confectionery bar. Yeah.
Hmm. Wonderful. Do you have any ideas for the future that you wish to share in regards to new products or where you sort of want to see Chocofellar go?
Yeah, I'd say like I think that my obsession for taste and texture is going to carry on its journey. I look forward to building more connections with farmers this year,
Mm,
going myself to Colombia, so that itself will probably open up some new ideas
wonderful.
and new connections. And I I don't know. My goal is really to deliver the very best product we possibly can to our community first and foremost,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
also to the rest of Canada
Hmm. Hmm.
as we grow and get a chance to establish ourselves despite a critical economy right now. I think it's times like these right now that either forge us or destroy us, and my goal is to really leverage our quality and craftsmanship and just presence over here to grow and to keep offering a service to those who want it.
Yeah, and I think it's another good reason why we need to encourage people to not be so hung up on this idea of European chocolate and just to support local craftsmen like you in their province and their city, whatever it is, because that makes a huge difference on the economy of Canada and just the culture of our towns and our cities as well. So that'd be really nice to see you grow consistently now, especially with the Bean to Bar. With all this work that you're doing, do you still have time to go skiing and be outdoors there in Nelson?
I would say chocolate has its own season, and one of the things that attracted me actually into this trade is that the seasonality runs opposite to paragliding season for the very most part.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
having worked so much in the ski industry, I've had my fill, and I still get to go ski here and there. Not yet this year, but in past years, I have still been able to go enjoy some local skiing over here. My main focus right now is also my second job in paragliding too,
Wonderful.
and so it works well because I can be absolutely dedicated and basically the horse blinders on for 6 months of the year fully with chocolate, and then
Mm-hmm.
peter off a little bit over the summertime and be a little less present in the shop.
Right.
Still affirm my presence, but be a bit more focused on flying.
Yeah.
And then when the fall comes, it's again full steam ahead towards Christmas.
You should do a thriller's chocolate tasting paragliding where you guys are tasting chocolate in the air. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, I've seen a video of someone in I think it was in Switzerland that tempered chocolate while flying on a paraglider,
That's
and
crazy.
I was like, yeah, okay, it's already been done. I'm not gonna go that road.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway,
and where can people purchase your chocolate? Do you ship across Canada? Where do you ship to?
yeah, so we do ship across Canada. People can order over our website. We actually put a discount code, especially for your website visitors and audience. First timer 10. It will be available via your website. Other than that, we also sell in quite a few stores in the West Kootenays near Nelson.
Okay,
We're also distributed by Save on Food and Safeway, so the Pattison
nice.
and Sobeys group.
Hmm.
At a limited scale so far in BC, but
Hmm. Hmm.
overall about 50 different retailers at this point still carry our products
Wonderful.
across BC.
Yeah, wonderful. And what is the best way for people to stay updated with Chocofellar?
Either keep a tab open on our website or follow us on social media, on Instagram at Chocofellar or on Facebook at Chocofellar. These are probably the two best, most current ways of keeping up with us.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Aurelien. Really nice to chat with you, hear your story. You sound very energetic, and so I wish you the best with your endeavor.
Thanks very much, Joseph. Thanks for having us on your podcast and for your ongoing interest in Bean to Bar.
Thank you. All the best. Take care. Talk to you again
You
soon.
too. Bye bye.
Bye. Download the free Bean to Bar app to connect with makers from around the world, either where you live or places you'll visit. Also, be sure to visit beantobarworld.com for all things fine chocolate, including professional chocolate tastings, chocolate tutoring, online shop filled with bars, tasting tools, and more, the free learning center filled with research, history, science, videos, podcasts, and much more. Sign up for the newsletter to stay in touch, and feel free to donate to grow the free app and free learning center.